Hey, we are back for another one of these second thoughts with Sam. And I had some more thoughts on the class that we did yesterday, I which I really enjoyed. I thought it was an interesting experience, and I appreciated it. And the thing about it really was it was an really for me and just an exploration in looking at these just the ways in which our point of views can be skewed so easily just by any number of things. So it was a class on immigration, but in particular it was undocumented immigration. And what I did was I took two sets of students, and I looked at various issues related to immigration and illegal or undocumented immigration. And I took a more of a conservative view. So hang on one second. I'm gonna kind of I'll bring this up here and 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 see if I can make it happen. So here we go. Um, Hang on. Oh man, this is so annoying. Just like trying to get this. All right. Uh, here it is. I can look at this. This was the first thing that I did was kind of I one group of students I took the position that we need to get immigration under control, immigrants, undocumented immigrants, but are all really immigrants at a certain level undermine the social order if they're not legalized. And the second one was it's really net positive, regardless of whether it's decriminalized or not. And and so um, hang on. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to get us off here. So, um, so the issue is, uh, I thought it would be really interesting to just look at one group of students, just have one group of students only hear one perspective, and the other group of students only hear the other perspective. And and for me, that has great value because I really do start whatever issue it is that I'm looking at, whatever it, regardless of the issue, I start by saying what is true and what could I feel comfortable with just intellectually saying is true about this particular issue, and always kind of what's the middle ground. And the only way to get to the middle ground is to take, for me, is I take these really extreme positions from all over the place. Like everywhere I want to look at something, I sort of walk around the outside of the circle. I take is a really extreme position to try to see what's in the center of the circle. And I don't. The middle ground isn't that I want. I think is in the middle of all these positions. The middle ground is truth for me, and it may be that it's more over here in this part of the issue, or it's more over here in this part of the range of issues, or whatever, right? It doesn't really matter, but it's just what is true. And so I may end up on one issue following a very conservative line of thinking, or I may be following a very classically liberal line of thinking. And that wasn't always true for me, because when I was younger, when I first started teaching, I really kind of saw teaching as an opportunity for me to, well, hang on. I think I started when I came of age, thinking about the world. Um, I opened my eyes to the world. Like I mostly was just sort of, puttering through life, right? And then I started opening my eyes to what was really going on, and I started to see issues related to power and inequity and these kinds of things. And I saw that, wherever I look, there are people kind of behind the scenes who are kind of pulling some levers and making things happen. And I didn't grow up as one of those people. I grew up in a world in which knowledge and power was really out of my control. In fact, I didn't ever have the idea that the world may not be entirely fair and even-handed and that kind of thing. So when I came of age as a thinker, when I opened my eyes, I opened them to see all of these things happening. And so then it was kind of in a way my mission to point this out to other people, who need to see this stuff. Like, the world isn't fair. Like, the world, there are a lot of things going on that, really suck. And people do some really terrible things and this kind of stuff, right? And in the world of sociology, and I was teaching courses like social problems and intro and inequality, social inequality, these kinds of things. And so, like, I had kind of, it became in a way my mission to really show other people that this was happening, right? Well, that started to pass after a number of years, maybe about a decade or so, and that teaching was no longer I didn't have that need to kind of take that approach and critique structure and power. And I was really more interested in getting at truth. And so now, that's just how I start things, right? So anyway, I took this approach in class because I found that it's so it's just so easy to get to start traveling down one road or the other. And even me, when I'm digging around trying to find the data and the information and what it is that I'm going to be bringing into a classroom. I mean, it just really depends on where I go to find that information. I mean, it's just so easy for me to go to one website or one source or another, and it's just completely different arguments and completely different data. So anyway, that's my take on this. But I am going to hang on. I'm going to set this up so that I can. All right, here we go. I'm gonna. Let me see. Hang on. Let me see if I can do this. Sorry, I'm taking so long. It gets really complicated now. Holy smokes! There we go. All right. So anyway, this is the position. This is what I took, right? So or how I divided the students up, right? So there were a couple. I'm going to just give you an example of this. This is something I did not talk about in class, but I was looking at the economy. I want to look at the economy, right? So I find this group here. This is the Federation for Immigration Reform and the Immigration Reform Law Institute, and these are very conservative, anti-immigration organizations, right? And so, for me, it's like, oh, okay, you're very conservative, right? And their argument, they run numbers together, and they say, hey, listen, immigrants, undocumented immigrants, cost us about $116 billion annually. But when all is said and done, and all all the expenditures that go out trying to regulate things, and we get about $20 billion back in taxes and whatnot, right? So for them, it's a net loss. And I think, that's really interesting, and they run through these numbers, and it kind of makes sense. And but on the other side of people who are very supportive of loosening regulations on undocumented immigrants, they say the exact opposite. So it's just so fascinating to see that they could just people just come up with numbers. So if I decide that this is the place that I look, this is if this is my idea that, okay, immigration is a problem or undocumented immigration is a problem, then I just look for these numbers. And if I want to see it, if my ideology is such that, no, we should support the rights of undocumented immigrants and this sort of thing, and people who are coming there looking for a better life, whatever it is, then I'm going to just take a very different perspective. I'm going to look at the other numbers, and it's so easy to do, right? So here's another, hang on, here we go. Here's another one. So we've got, man, sorry about this. It just gets complicated to be running it. We've got 10 to 11, maybe 12 million undocumented immigrants. And, just this is the amount of money we spend on Border Patrol and ICE in this country, right? Really trying to regulate the flow of immigrants. So, it's like in 2016, $20 billion. So it's so crazy, man. It's just so crazy, right? Okay, so hang on, I'm going to show you something here. Then the other side is we say, look, hang on, I'm going to answer a few of your questions, by the way, really fast. These are just like scores on math, reading, and science. And look where the U.S. is. The U.S. is the yellow. So look where we are, and in math and science. Like, we're really in bad shape, and we need immigrants who are trained in math and science to really up our game at some level, and especially like green cards and people who we can bring on an H-1B visas who are more educated and more likely to respond to, or to be able to take tech jobs and that sort of stuff. In fact, you can make the argument that Silicon Valley, the entire tech boom of the past 40 years, has been driven by immigrants and immigration, right? So we just see like the need for this, right? Anyway, it's just a matter of what I decide to look at, right? And this $14 trillion was, with the so here's the positive side. It's like this organization, a different organization, this pro-immigration, argues that our GDP will grow by $1.4 trillion, right? If we just took, it would grow if we just gave legal status to undocumented immigrants that are here in the United States. So like, okay, so who wins? Like, who are we going to say? What are we going to say? Who gets to have the final word, right? And then we just, hash it out. And then somebody like me comes along teaching a class, and I got to do a section, let's say, on immigration or undocumented immigration. And I'm going to come down on, I'm going to just find the things that fit with my own ideology. And then those are the ones that I'm going to talk about in class. And it's so easy to do. And you have to fight against that. And mind you, I think that most college professors, so unlike what, the right wing in the United States thinks is clearly happening, which is that, college professors like me are brainwashing students. The truth is, I think most of us are really trying to do the right thing, or we're trying to find, multiple perspectives and trying to kind of talk about things as open-mindedly and thoughtfully as we can. But even when we're trying to do it, like me, I'm trying to do it. I'm like trying to get to the data that are going to give me the best arguments or the most thoughtful arguments. You just look at the skewed numbers, right? Like how much it costs us versus if we just legalized everybody's status, we could gain $1.4 trillion as opposed to, spending $100 billion a year kind of thing. It's like, oh man, like there's just no way to get to the truth. You just kind of can try to approximate it a little bit. So the best I can do, and what I try to do yesterday in my class, is just demonstrate how easy it is to just send people on two completely different paths. And so anyway, I had a lot of fun doing that. I think it's like, it just confused us. All right, man. So East, you say, I can't wait until these kids are seasoned in the real world. For a decade or so, my father was illegal, and I see no problem keeping our borders closed. Yeah, I think, so I made that argument yesterday to the one group of people to whom I was presenting an anti immigrate a kind of an anti-immigration approach. I'm not sure which one I made that argument to, but there definitely is the pick yourself up by your bootstrap. I mean, there is that's happening, right? And I think that in ways, immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, are saying, hey, I'm going to pick myself up by my bootstraps, man. In fact, I'm going to put my boots on and I'm going to go to the United States. First off, I'm going to leverage what capital I have. So I may, maybe I own a little bit of land and I'm going to sign the deed over I'm going to borrow money from somebody. And the only thing I have in the collateral I have in exchange is the land that I own or my house or my car or something. And if I can't pay that person back, they're going to have my land, my house, or my car. I mean, I watched this happen when I was living in Ecuador 35 years ago. And people who weren't able to make it work and get to the United States lost a lot. They lost their livelihoods. And so, because it costs a lot of money to get to the US. And so in a way, like people are saying like, hey, I'm going to pull myself up on my bootstraps. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to put everything on the line and I'm going to put these boots on and I'm going to walk all the way to the United States. And I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make money. That's a pretty hardcore pull yourself up by your bootstraps perspective, really. And, it may go against what people would like to see happen, right? And I think and I think that's fair. I think people who say like, yeah, okay, but this could be a problem for us, right? If we have too many of these folks. But the truth is, those are the kinds of people that you really probably want to have around. And they're going to work really hard. And when I talk to, as I do all the time, I talk to people who are hiring laborers in any number of positions, whether it's, farming or lawn care work or the more mechanically oriented thing, like electricians and plumbers and carpentry and so on. Man, the struggle people have to hire people who are legalized, and how often people say to me, man, but I like had this one person, undocumented person working for me, or my brother has these undocumented people working for him or whatever, and they work so hard and they're so good and they're so honest and they show up on time and they do everything they're supposed to do, and the positive accolades that people get or give out to undocumented people. And of course, as I said in class yesterday, of course, because like if you don't work, you starve. If you don't work, you lose whatever it is that you leverage back home, or you get sent back home, or whatever it's going to be. And so, like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I see that. I mean, I can't argue against it. I've seen it. And yet, I understand that we can go too far. So, the argument against an argument against the native argument, Indians killed Indians. Yeah. Okay, hang on. When I argued that natives would see us as illegal, that's not true because laws didn't exist. Well, hang on. I know that, but when you talk to native peoples today, it's a pretty common thread of an argument or an analysis, and that, yeah, the illegal people, if we want to use that word illegal, like people come and they pose a system of laws onto the land and everybody who lives inside the land. Yeah, we can do that, but that means then indigenous peoples can use those same laws that we've now kind of put into place, and they can just look backwards and say, but by your own laws, you're illegal. You're only not because you came here and you established a system of laws, and all these kind of de jure practices, right? And yeah, and then you get the right. You take the high road, and you get to claim that, like, we're legal, but they're going to make the counter argument, And people do make the counter argument. So it's not that it's true or not true. The issue is, in my conversations with American Indians, it's actually quite, it's very common to like throw that back at Americans who want to make the argument. So, uh, why is a citizen? Because of race, religion, language, power, or what? Well, yeah. Um, anyway, yes, yes. Forks equals yes. Uh, I guess you're a citizen. Well, in the United States, we have, you're a citizen either A, because you're born in the country, which means you could be born in the country because it's nativistic process that we have. You could be born here by two parents or by a mother who is here on vacation, or who is here illegally, or without papers, or whatever, or is here but with a green card, or any number of things. But here you are, is flying through and got off the plane and is in O'Hare Airport on the way to from Japan to Paris, and suddenly, oh my God, is like you're born in O'Hare Airport. Well, you're now suddenly an American. This is it. You're now an American citizen. You have the opportunity to be an American citizen, because that's the way we do it, and maybe about half of all countries in the world do. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. But I know at one time I looked it up and talked about how many countries in the world, would hold the same policies. But anyway, yeah, because either A, you've been, granted citizenship by nature of your birthright, or because you've gone through some legal process by which, the laws of the land and the people who are carrying out those laws have decided that, okay, you're now going to be a citizen, and that's it, man. There's nothing else. So yeah, so we do have Arnica. So we do have a lot of visa options, actually. In fact, so we offer so many green cards, as I mentioned. Like, we got 12.5 million green cards, or green card holders, in the United States. And the problem is, there's this world of when you get like really low paying, unskilled jobs, low paying but really difficult jobs, like farm labor or working in a meat processing plant, whether it's chicken or pork or beef or something. Those are really pretty undesirable jobs. So the moment, if you're without papers, you really don't have a lot of options about the kinds of jobs that you're going to take. But the moment we give you papers, the moment we give you a green card, you're not going to want to do that job anymore unless it pays a lot more money than it would pay you working there without papers. And so everybody then looks up, and the jobs that were empty that we need to fill, if we just gave everybody who's undocumented a green card, we wouldn't be able to fill those jobs anymore, because they wouldn't want to do them. They're going to be looking for other jobs, right? And eventually, I suppose, if we fill up every other job, someone's going to have to do that, go back into the meat processing plants. But those are really just very, very difficult and undesirable positions. And so this is part of the problem with workers and in these kinds of positions in agriculture and so on. So there's a way in which, yeah, let's just keep things. We want to keep people undocumented. We want to keep them without papers, because they're going to have to continue to do this work, and they're going to continue to do the work at a pay wage that works for their employers. And that's the other side of this. So, and that's not to say directly that employers are really exploiting people, right? But sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes the employers are trying to figure out how to carve out a living as well. So, yeah, it's it's very fascinating. And we're lots of countries are in this position. The entire, the age sex pyramid that we're seeing, and in countries around the world, along with birth rates, it's deeply troubling for a lot of nations. Japan, Korea, China is running into this. Korea is in a deep discussions, man. In Japan, like what's going to happen as these populations get older and they just don't have workers to do the jobs that need to be done. And the birth rate in Korea is one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the world. It's less than 1%. And you need a birth rate of 2.1 or 2.2% to reproduce to maintain a population, not to even grow the population. So that means up I said 2.1 or 2.2%. It's not that. It's 2.1 or 2.2, meaning that every woman in the country would need to give birth to 2.1 children. That's the reproduction rate, right? That's how you reproduce your population. So, we're not having that, man. And this is a big problem in Korea, because what happens is, all the workers at the lower end are doing the work to support all the people above. And when you get to the top of the triangle, like, up here at the very top of the triangle, the people who are not working anymore, they demand a lot of services and they have a lot of needs. And so you need a lot of people at the base who are going to support everybody going up that pyramid. And when the base starts to shrink, so instead of looking like, how would I say? It's like, I don't know, like this, right at the bottom, right? Like, you know what I mean? Because then it goes up like that, right? So here it is, the bottom, and suddenly that is now like this. It starts to get much smaller because we're not having as many children being born. Well, eventually those small numbers working up are deeply troubling for a society. So Korea, Japan, China, we're going to see this in China, and we're seeing it in Europe. We're seeing it in all the Scandinavian countries. But except that in Europe, there are new immigrants that are moving in. But people are going to have these moments where we got to figure out what you're going to do. So it's quite a problem, man. China is actually really going to be in some deep struggle. And the issue is, like China changed its policy, abandoned the one-child policy. But, it's probably a little bit too late. They abandon it when people in China are running into crises, including housing crises and so on. And people don't want to have kids. And I'm not having a kid. It's too expensive. In Korea right now, just a very modest, in Seoul, a very modest house or apartment, like a 2-bedroom apartment, and it is far more expensive than young people can afford. And the vast majority of young people live with this idea that they will never own a home. They'll never be able to own a home at this rate because housing prices have soared in the way that they have. Same in Tokyo. So, man, I don't know. It's fascinating, really, to see where we're going to go and what's going to happen. So people talk about the overpopulation as being a real problem, but underpopulation is actually a problem as well because it's incredibly disruptive. So the growth, Africa is going to grow and be eventually, be the growth in Africa is just going to boom. But okay, what's that going to mean? So, yeah, it's interesting. All right, man. What else do we have? Is there anything else? Any other thoughts, questions? I guess I would say about class yesterday. I appreciated it. I appreciate doing those kinds of classes whereby it just really, it's a challenge for me. It's a challenge for me to try to take these different positions in such a really strong way. I like that. It feels like intellectually, like it forces me to really kind of step up. And it's kind of interesting that, I've got, when, different media, when organizations on the right have really criticize me. They have this idea that I'm like this raging liberal. And I think, God, it's so fascinating that becomes the case, right? That they're, Fox News and whatever, like see me as this raging liberal. When in fact, I'm I'm doing stuff like that in what I did yesterday in my class, which I think is pretty truthfully fair and balanced. Isn't that's Fox's thing, right? Fair and balanced. Oh, okay, I guess so. Who is a citizen as a philosophical question? That's actually really a good question. Just philosophically, who's a citizen? I know because, borders are, what's a border, right? You can just kind of walk over a border. I guess all it is, it's the claim that, we have these kind of geographic regions, right? Or like, these geographic, we kind of divide the world up in these kind of geographic territories, right? And we put some kind of borders around them somehow, even though the borders could move back and forth a little bit, but mostly they remain at this stage of the game pretty stable. And I guess all of the people in power in those regions, people want power, human beings do, and a certain number of people do. A lot of people don't, but a certain number of them do. And they want to exert their power onto some kind of other group. So maybe it means that they have a big family and a small family, and they exert their power into the family, or a big one, or they start a synagogue or a church or a mosque or something, or a community organization or a university organization. I don't know, something like that. Or they teach a class and exert their power over students. But whatever it is, there's a certain number of people that want to do that. And so I guess at the level of political entities, which is what we're talking about with these territories and geographic borders and whatever, they're going to be people who want to sort of be the ones that make the decisions for the people living inside of these regions, since they become the politicians, so to speak, right? And then they want to kind of decide, okay, who's going to be inside of our borders and who's going to be outside of our borders. And then they're going to just make a lot of decisions about what that means, and whatever is best for them, how they decide is best for them, then that's how it's going to operate. And a lot of folks in those positions are, I suppose, looking out for people in those territories, but they're also looking out for themselves. Once you reach a certain level of power, you're also looking out for your own self-interest, which is your ability to stay in that. But again, also your ability to do the best for the people who are there, right? Who you supposedly represent, either because you're the queen or you're the prime minister or you're the something, right? The mayor. And so I guess then you're just going to make some decisions about who's in and who's out, and eventually those get codified in some way, right? They're coded into law, and then people just work with it. And that's what makes a citizen, I guess. But philosophically, I mean, if we really think about it, like, how you be a citizen? What's it mean? Like, what's it mean that I'm a citizen of the U.S.? Like, how strange is that? And I'm not really sure when I can just jump on a plane and be somewhere else, but yet I'm a citizen of the U.S. I mean, I understand the general thing, the rights and responsibilities and all that kind of stuff, right? But what does it really mean? Yeah, it's really fascinating. Huh. Yeah. All right, man. That was yesterday. By the way, tomorrow's class is going to be a conversation about mass violence and guns. The shooting that happened here at Michigan State University, which somehow just seems like it might be something that like maybe shifts something. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, man. But it's somehow seems different. But in any case, we've invited a select number of international students from India, a couple of Hamiji students, student from Indonesia, student from China, to talk about just this violence. Do I know what's happening in Ethiopia and how? Yeah. I am following Ethiopia. I used to. Lori and I had a project in Ethiopia for a couple of years, and so we traveled there a couple times, and the project got disrupted by the Ethiopian government, and the fighting that really just broke out against what the government called the uh, these so-called rebel groups, and so yes, um, the project was not in the Tigray, I think it's Tigray region, but it was right in the edge of the Tigray region, and so in the end we had to pull the plug on it because of the fighting that took place, and it's really quite disturbing, actually, what's going on, and it really goes against what one would imagine would be happening, especially given that the president, when the fighting really took off about 5 years ago, it just seemed like the last thing that the leadership in Ethiopia would pursue, and it was really kind of sad that happened in that way, and yeah. Fuck, man, I can't. It's hard. It's one of those places in the world where if I turn my attention too long, I can feel really sad and depressed pretty quickly. Yeah, just seems so opposite of what should be happening. Anyway, yes. So that is my longer answer to your question. I think that there are a lot of conflicts in a lot of places in the world where I don't put as much attention as I would like to, or as I would used to, because I can't. My heart just breaks. I can't take it. As I turn everywhere I turn, I see things that I just don't want to see, and there's enough for me to speak about it. But the problem is I can't really speak about it in class because students don't know, and it doesn't mean anything to them. If I talk about the conflict with the Rohingya refugees, for example, it just means nothing. And so it's just me just speaking into the void, and that somehow just feels worse. Or Ethiopia, or Eritrea, or anywhere. Somalia right now, the Sahel region, all of the Sahel region. It just feels, that's just devastating. So anyway, I'm living as a teacher, as someone who does pay attention to these kinds of things, with having to balance my own heartbreak with my own desire to say something, but I don't know who I'm saying something to. So that's kind of I have a bit of a struggle with that. Okay. If there's any other questions, I'll take them, but otherwise I will go think a little bit about class tomorrow. I think it'll be an interesting conversation for sure. Just to hear different perspectives, just like Americans, we have this students in the class now who grew up here in the United States, who just grew up. So you just have, police officers in your schools, and you just have, drills for mass shooting. I guess it's just as bizarre as when I was a kid, and we had drills for nuclear war. We went down the basement of my school when I was, in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, and we would line up in the hallways down there and put our heads between our legs, as it's like that was a nuclear war drill. I mean, just holy shit. the insanity of that. Well, that's kind of insane now that you're going to teach people to hide in their classrooms or run. I mean, just really, this is what we've gotten to this is the best we can do as a society, right? Wow, teach our kids just run. People, we have bulletproof backpacks, or backpacks, I guess, that we buy for kids, that kind of stuff. It's like, oh my God, man. Oh my God, this is it for 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, right? Okay, Arnica, the Ohio piece, yeah, man, that is just, I saw a couple photos I saw a photo that somebody took from an airplane. They were above the clouds, and they just saw, the gases and the fumes from that explosion in Ohio. It's like, oh man, wow, wow. Yeah, it reminds me of the port in Beirut, a few years back. Okay. Anyway, there we are. Those are some second or third or fourth thoughts from me. Maybe I'll talk again. Maybe on Friday after class tomorrow. I'm really curious to see what students will say. I'm really, really fascinated to hear how we're going to talk about this question of violence and guns. Yeah. Because it's cool to have all these international students in the classroom who just didn't grow up around these kinds of ideas, who grew up in these societies where people just don't have guns and we don't have these mass killings. Yeah. Michigan shooting can stir up change. I don't. I've just seen. I think maybe it's just hopeful thinking on my part. Maybe it's because it's like a college campus in a way. There's college students. They've got these phones and they took so much video, and it's so destabilizing to see all the video and the fear. Maybe I just have this hope that's kind of silly that somehow something will shift. Probably not. I guess when it's Sandy Hook, when 30 children between the ages of 5 and 12 were brutally killed. I thought, okay, well, this is going to do it now, right? We're really going to take this gun violence seriously, but we didn't. It was even worse. It just got even worse after that, the way that people really took that. So, yeah, man. So maybe I'm just talking with a sense of, because I guess I don't even know what to say about the violence anymore here. I mean, there's not that much of it, relatively speaking. Let's be clear, right? There's 330 million Americans. We got 400 million guns in the hands of private citizens. And if you think about it, there's really very few, there's a lot of rage and a lot of crazy people. And there's really, on one hand, very small amount of killing that's happening. I mean, it's a lot. But on the other hand, thinking what it could be, like, it's like the Wild West here, man. People could just be shooting each other left and right, and they're not. And so, yeah. So I don't know. Hey, by the way, so Jeff, you should know, I can't see the stream at all. When you start the stream, I can't see it. So I can only see things that you put in the private. And what you were saying about the Ethiopian church is in trouble, that I don't understand that. Yeah. And the Russia piece. That I'm not following that carefully, what that connection is. So I don't have anything to say on it. At least I don't think I do. Maybe I do, but I don't think so. Yeah. All right, man. So Jeff, I think I'm gonna just hop off here and get ready put some things together for class tomorrow. I think we'll see where we go. So if you're good with that, if I'm good with that, then let's go for it. Okay. All right, man. We'll see you all. Thanks for hopping on, and we'll just keep moving forward. Thanks, everyone.